Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 72. I am so glad to be back at the microphone. It's been a couple of weeks. I had my surgery. Everything went very successfully, and I've been recuperating, and I feel great. And I really miss talking with you guys, so I am very excited to be back at the microphone and trying to get caught up. Oh my gosh, how quickly do emails pile up and all kinds of things. It just seems like the world just keeps going, so I've been kind of trying to keep abreast of what's going on out there in the blogosphere and what's going on in genealogy, and love reading your emails. And I want to thank all of you who wrote in and were so kind and thoughtful to wish me a speedy recovery and let me know that you were thinking about me. I really appreciate that. That was very, very sweet, and I'm sure that it helped me to get back on my feet even sooner. So thank you so much. And there have been some things going on in the world of genealogy. I got a note from footnote.com that they are marking they're marking Family History Month, which is in October, with their 60 millionth image milestone. Amazing. 60 million images on footnote.com. They say they do about 1 million new records per month. And to hit 60 million is quite a feat. So congratulations to footnote.com for doing that. Well, in the press release they sent out, they talk about the fact that they do include the free Social Security death index on their website. For each of the SSDI records, footnote.com has created a page that features a dynamic timeline, map, photo gallery, and a section for others to contribute stories and insights about an individual. So they're very much encouraging that social networking there on footnote.com. And I also noticed that there was an article in the Tribune-Star online. It was by Tamie Dehler. I think that's how you pronounce it, Dehler. Her article is called How to Order Key Civil War Records. And it's a really nice comprehensive list of, you've identified a record that you want to get. It can be kind of hairy trying to, navigate your way through the National Archives and what the proper forms are. And she just lists it all right out there for you. The forms to use, how to get them, how to order records online, and of course the fees and the waiting time that are involved, and how to even track your orders. So I will have the direct website link for that article in the Tribune-Star on the show notes for this episode again, which is number 72. And of course, the big story that caught my eye was that Google Books, once again, is taking a revolutionary step in books. Well, I guess it's revolutionary. Now, you know that they started digitizing books. They kind of started with the out of copyright, the older books that are no longer available. They've partnered with other libraries. It has definitely moved into other types of books as well, and ones from current publishers. And of course, lots of hullabaloo about the rules and the laws surrounding the copyright issues of all that. But now that they have so many books digitized and online at Google Books, they have just taken another revolutionary step. They're going to provide them in paper. I thought that was kind of cute, actually. They put out a video recently about their partnership with a company where they are creating this machine. It's like a mega copy machine. And I guess they're going to be putting this in, or want to put this in, bookstores and libraries across the country so that you could actually go on the computer in that location, pull up a book that's digitized on Google Books, and you could actually order a copy of the book. So right there, and it shows you in the video, 3.5 minutes, they produce basically a soft cover with a full color cover, fully bound, paperback book. And it all comes through this machine. It is pretty amazing. But leave it to Google to make it revolutionary to actually print a book. But that is not the only thing going on with Google Books these days. As soon as, it seems like, gosh, just a day or so after the video came out, and I posted it on my Genealogy Gems news blog. You can find it there at genealogygemspodcast.blogspot.com. And I'll have a link directly to this blog article, which is called Google Books Revolutionary Next Step. And you can watch the video there. But just a day or so later, then I noticed that another article came out through the BBC News. And this may put a little bit of a chink in the armor of Google.com, kind of deflate their bubble. The U.S. Justice Department has urged a New York court to reject a deal that would allow Google to publish millions of books online. Now, I've blogged about this before on the Genealogy Gems news blog, and I think we talked about it here on the show, where to deal with some of these questions about which books they can digitize, they have gotten together with the various organizations such as the Authors Guild and the Association of American Publishers, and they've tried to basically hammer out a deal that would establish a way for them to be able to digitize a wide variety of books and therefore potentially compensate the authors and the publishers. I don't know from reading the deal if I really think it's going to cover the very small author or the self-published author. But the reason this came about was because I actually blogged about this as well. There was a man in Halifax who had printed a family history, and he, of course, had donated it to the local library at the University of Michigan. And next thing they knew, he found it on Google Books. It wasn't his intention to have it on Google Books. He really wanted it just available to the local community in the university's library. And of course, if now they implement a large copy machine that gets put in bookstores and libraries across the country, there could be people downloading this book and paying Google to print it for them. And he wouldn't see a dime of that. Now, the challenge here is that a man like this gentleman in Halifax, who just is self-publishes a very small family history and puts that in a couple of key locations, he's only printed, a handful of copies. Chances are he's not going to see any kind of revenue from the Authors Guild Association deal that they hammered out. So it's interesting. It really ends up being for him just some copyright infringement. And of course, other companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Yahoo, they all object to this deal because it really kind of gives Google a monopoly on books. Well, all of this is a really big challenge because those of us in genealogy love the fact that there are so many books digitized on Google Books, particularly those old ones, the historical ones, the ones that are one of a kind or out of print, so hard to get our hands on. There they are, available for free on Google Books. And I, for one, love it, and I use it all the time. But also being an author, and really all of you listening are potentially going to be an author down the road, because at some point you may decide that you do want to publish your work, publish your genealogy, whether it be self-publishing a dozen copies, or whether it be going to a full-blown publisher and doing it that way. Either way, you've made agreements with people who have given you photographs to use, and maybe you had certain agreements with them as to how they would be distributed. In fact, let me pull this up here. I got an email, and it's from listener Michael Brown, and he addresses this. Michael writes that he's been listening to the podcast and he wanted to throw his 2 cents in on this topic. He says, Google has been vying for digital rights to family books outside of all copyright laws. And to defend your own rights, you had to let Google know to opt out, which is the deal that they put together with the publishers and the authors groups. And Michael says, I've put together a small history of my Irish ancestors, just 40 pages, but chock full of notes, pictures, and history of the Irish, and contributed a few copies to libraries where my Irish ancestors lived in Missouri for the express purpose of those folks doing local research. What really upsets me is that there were certain assumptions that went into the distribution. I noted all rights reserved to me in the book. In particular, I have several copies of photos that are owned by the Missouri Historical Society, which I paid a small sum based on my written agreement that I would not print more than 35 copies of my book. I expressly held to that agreement, but for Google to digitally publish and distribute my book, potentially, they are in direct violation of that agreement. Since they don't know the underlying assumptions that go along with my publication, they should not be allowed access unless they are earlier than the 1924 date or whatever the date was, whatever the copyright rules are. Or they contact me to allow them written permission. In my case, I'd have to republish the book with those photos extracted and possibly other items like personal family notes removed. I sure hope they don't get away with this. Sincerely yours, Michael. Well, thank you, Michael, for writing. This is a great example of what we're talking about. It's the idea that, we have these smaller agreements that we put together to try to include some of the terrific photographs and things that we want to include in our published works. And Google may therefore violate that if they were to take it beyond. So it is rather confusing. And I have to say, as much as I love using Google Books, I think that it makes a lot of sense that the U.S. Justice Department is asking the New York court to reject the deal. They may need to go back and relook at it and consider the wider ramifications and maybe come up with a deal that makes a little more sense. It's also challenging because the Authors Guild and the Association of American Publishers really don't represent all authors, do they? Certainly not those of us who are just publishing on our own. So this is definitely a story we're going to watch, and I will keep you abreast of any new news that comes up about what the New York courts actually end up doing and what happens with Google. And if you happen to see one of these unique copy machines in one of your local bookstores or your library, do email me. I would love to hear. I would love to know if they are popping up around the country, not only how they work, but just kind of what the local response is to them as well. Well, those are the new news items that have kind of caught my eye since I've been a little underground for a couple of weeks. But I also have a couple of great emails from you, and that is coming up next in the mailbox. Well, let's see. Here in the mailbox, got a couple of great emails. First one from Sue Edminster. She writes, Dear Lisa, just to let you know I'm a real fan of your podcasts. I just started listening to them on my iPod Touch, and I am hooked. Yes. Great, Sue. Thanks for all the great information. She says, I just listened to your presentation about Genealogy Wise and Facebook, differences and concerns you had about Genealogy Wise. My frustration with that site is that I get periodic emails saying that thus-and-so person has left a comment on the XYZ list, but there's absolutely no indication of what the post relates to. I contacted Genealogy Wise and asked them if they'd consider putting the actual comments in the body of the email as Facebook does. Their reply is basically no, because the software they're using doesn't allow it, and they're on a tight budget and won't be changing. So, to be honest, I hardly ever use Genealogy Wise. It's just not that helpful at this stage. Thanks again for everything. And that's from Sue Edminster. She actually is the author of the Echo Hill Ancestors weblog. And she writes, P.S. I'm just downloading more of your podcast. Well, thank you, Sue. Actually, I've noticed the same thing, and it does drive me a little bit crazy. I love the site. I think it's a lot of fun. But I do know that site, from what I can tell, is the platform is another company. And I know that because before Genealogy Wise came to be, I was invited into another group, and it turned out that was the platform. And they used this platform for creating a social networking site that would be similar to a Facebook. So it's interesting that Family Link opted to use an existing platform such as that versus kind of customizing their own. So yeah, I think the answer they gave you is correct. It's very limited in terms of what they can do to customize it. But I totally agree with as many emails as we get, because I get my notifications from Facebook, but I love them because they even have the comments right there in the email. And I love that. If I don't want to click all the way through into Facebook, I can keep up to speed with what's being said right there from my email and not get sidetracked with what I'm doing, which is very easy to do. But with Genealogy Wise, I get the emails, and then you're right, it says, so-and-so's made a comment. And the most challenging part is not only do you have to go into the site to look at it, but then you have to kind of comb through it and try to figure out what was the most recent, who was it that said it, have I already seen this, that kind of thing. So it's a little more time consuming, but they're on a shoestring budget. So I don't imagine we're going to see much change in the future. So I appreciate your input, though. The more information that's coming our way, the more databases, the more websites, the more, everything, you find yourself, if it doesn't have a really easy mechanism for interacting, you just can't. I don't know about you, but it's like there's only so many hours in the day. And I really need a quick and easy way to be able to interact and get involved and jump back into what I was doing. Because I get sidetracked. I mean, I could easily go in, check my Facebook and be, buried there for 45 minutes, keeping up with what everybody else is talking about and doing and looking at photographs and that kind of stuff. So anyway, appreciate your input. That's very interesting. Would love to hear from more of you about your experiences with Genealogy Wise, what you love about it, what frustrates you about it, whatever. And maybe there are some ideas that we can share with each other to make it, an even better experience to use. And let's see, I have Kathy Owens. She wrote in and she says, Kathy, you're so sweet. She says, first of all, your podcasts are wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. You are wonderful for listening. Thank you so much. She says, I'm a little slow getting through them. However, I wanted to let you know how grateful I was to hear about that new genealogy type program. The program is called Transcript 2.3. I believe she is referring to the Family History podcast where we were talking to Denise Levenick. She's a blogger, and I believe that was a program that she had recommended as something that she uses. It's really cool. It's a free downloadable program called Transcript 2.3 that allows you to kind of split your screen and do transcription really easily right there on the computer. Well, Kathy says, wow, this is one fantastic program, and I wish that I would have known about it 10 years ago. But it sure will come in handy when I do more transcription of family history stories, articles, letters, and the like. Thank you so much for a great program. Keep up the great work. Kathy, I agree. It's a really cool program. And for any of you who missed it, I will include a link in the show notes for this episode so that you can take a look at it, download it, check it out, and see what Denise and Kathy are raving about with Transcript 2.3. Well, this next gem is the final gem that comes from the Southern California Genealogical Jamboree that I attended in June of 2009. I interviewed a lot of terrific folks, and this is the final interview I get to bring to you from that conference. It's with Jana Broglin. She's a certified genealogist, and you may recognize her name because she's written a lot of articles for the various genealogy magazines, and she is just an awful lot of fun to talk to. In this interview, we talk about probate records, but not only probate records. Jana had a terrific experience at the Jamboree that just is a wonderful example of genealogical serendipity, and we start off with that. So here's my interview with Jana Broglin, certified genealogist. Hi, well, I'm Louise Cooke with Genealogy Gems podcast, and I am very happy to welcome to the show Jana Broglin, certified genealogist here at the Southern California Genealogical Jamboree. Welcome, Jana.
Welcome. It's nice to see you and meet you. I'm so glad.
Nice to meet you, too. And, you know, we were going to sit down and we were going to talk about the probate process, and we'll do that.
Okay.
But you had something really fun happen just in the last 20 minutes, and it's a story about maybe what you can discover at a conference. Tell us what genealogical finds you got.
Talk about a genealogy gem. This was it. Last year, when we were out here at Southern California Jamboree, my husband came with me, and I had been threatening to have a DNA test for him. His grandfather was illegitimate, so we're not talking that far back.
Right.
So he finally relented to having the DNA test. Now, I don't understand it that much. Give me
DNA
something.
and that whole thing,
yes. And so since Family Tree DNA is here, I went over to them and I said, I'm just not coming up with things. And he said, well, you have it listed under Fuller. Why do you think it's Fuller? And I said, well, one on my husband's grandfather's death certificate, it has Brogdon as the father, which can't be because he deserted during the Civil War and went to Missouri, and mom's having kids back in Tennessee. Yeah. But however, Grandpa's brother's death certificate said Fuller as the last name. Well, you cannot assume in genealogy that it's going to be the same father. So I went over there, and they did a check, and we have two 37 marker exact matches
Oh, how
to the name
exciting.
Shipley.
Shipley.
Shipley. It's like, huh? So I'm,
And that would have been a needle in a haystack. When would you have ever looked down the Shipley line
yeah,
for your folks?
not at
Yeah.
all. Now, here's something even more strange. I'm telling the lady who's at the California Alliance table next to me, and she heard me say Shipley, and she said, I have Shipleys. She said, where? I said, Roane County, Tennessee. That's where her Shipleys are from, is Roane County, Tennessee. So you don't know what you're going to find when you come to a conference. You absolutely don't know what's
An amazing story of genealogical serendipity, and yet I suppose very likely that something like that could happen. There are thousands of people here, and they're all putting out that information and trying to connect up, and wow, what an amazing way to connect up.
And I looked at it, and it's like, and then there's one it says one generation removed, and then two generations, and they're all Shipleys. And that has their email addresses, and when I get home, I'm going to be finding out. So I'm absolutely thrilled, amazed. I can't believe, flabbergasted, and all the other adjectives.
So what you really, it sounds like, discovered is if you can match up the markers, it's not that the DNA test itself is going to tell you who your relatives are, but what it does is it allows you to connect with somebody else who has also run a test.
Exactly.
And then you can swap information, photographs, whatever. Oh,
They may not know of any of the Broglins.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they may be doing the genealogical happy dance when they hear from you and realize.
I am doing the happy dance. I am just ecstatic. I can't believe this. So this has been a very, very exciting last half hour. Yeah, and I went out. My husband's out by the pool, and I went out there. Guess what? And I just could hardly sit still.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yes.
On Genealogy Gems, a gem of a find. Well, besides just breaking open brick walls in your family tree, you're doing a few other things here at the conference, and I know that teaching is one of those things. Tell us what kinds of topics you're teaching on.
Yesterday I did one on newspaper research. As I reiterate that it's probably the most time-consuming of any of the research, because you start reading all the articles.
Yeah.
And you get really frustrated when you see chuck roast for 39 cents a pound. but seriously, with the older newspapers, you do not know where something is going to appear. So you have to read page by page to be able to find it, and then be able to cite your source and make sure that you can always go back and find it by identifying not only the newspaper, but the page and column, so that you know exactly where it is. So that was on yesterday. And this afternoon we have one called The Proof is in the Pudding. And we're talking about the genealogical proof standard and how you don't have to be a professional to do professional type research. Yes. And
that's near and dear to my heart. We've covered that in the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, and I interviewed Mark Tucker, who's very involved with that, with Think Genealogy, and I thought that was such an important point to make, was that you don't have to wait until you're a certified genealogist to use the proof standard, and you certainly wouldn't want to, because if you've neglected citing sources up till now, it's just going to be a ton of work, right, to go back.
Absolutely. And if you can start with your source citations as you start your research, then I don't know about you, but when I start, I'll remember where I got it. I'm lucky I remember what I had for lunch yesterday, let alone trying to remember where I got something, or the library I found, or the repository. But on something like this, we're going to discuss my grandfather instead of my husband's, and some of the conflicts I have found on that, and how we can try to make it better.
And that proof standard goes beyond just the source citation. It's really forcing you to answer certain questions and go through a certain path. And don't you find then that when you come up against a brick wall or a conflict with somebody else's research, it's great because you have a better place to start to try to find out where the breakdown is, right?
And also, what is the best type of document?
Yeah.
Are you using a derivative source, something that has been transcribed by someone else, and not looking at the original? Mm-hmm. And always want to try to get the original if you can. And then tomorrow we have one on the probate process, and what you can find if they have a will, or if they have an estate, if they die intestate. And there's a lot of great things that you can find, everything from inventories to find out what they had. And I found one in Kentucky, can't remember the county, And it was a doctor. And when he died, it lists every medicine in his inventory. And he might not be your ancestor, but these are the medicines that they were treated with.
Right.
So it was a great find.
Did he have any of his patients? I know my husband's family owned a hardware store, and when the great-grandfather died, there was a complete accounting of everybody who owed him money in any form.
Yes, you can find that. You can find doctors' registers on when they treated the patient. I mean, it's a wealth of information that can be found in one of the packets.
And that's why when I saw Jana was going to be here at the conference, I wanted to talk to you about that probate process, because I knew it was an area of your expertise, and just kind of interested in a quick overview of what the process is, and a sense of how much of that can be done online, and how much do we, because I know every type of source document has a different capability of online versus offline.
On something with working for a will, you might find that somebody has actually scanned it in because it's their family. But are you going to find Fulton County, Ohio estates online? No.
Okay.
No. You're going to have to go to the courthouses, because when you think of the overwhelming number of pages that can be even in one packet, and you multiply that by everybody who died within the county and trying to get the images scanned in, either get a volunteer or a court employee to do it. Yeah. So you can. This is when you plan a vacation and you go to the courthouse. It's amazing what you can find in them. You might find when a coffin was made. You might find guardianship records because of the fact that there were underage children. And it's something to remember. It's just because there's a guardianship record, it doesn't mean both parents are dead. It could just mean that the father is deceased, and a guardian would be appointed for the child. And it could be very, very well be the mom.
Right.
But with the guardianship records, it may take all the records from the time that the dad, say, would die until that child becomes of age. You might find tuition to schools and the school listed. You might find shoe leather to have shoes made, or calico for a dress. They're fascinating.
Well, so let's say we took your newspaper class and we found an obituary and we've confirmed a death date. Now, where do we go first if we know we're not going to go online? Go to the courthouse.
Out of the courthouse. Now, there are different courts of record. So you'd have to research now, is it in Indiana, and what is that going to be called, or is it in Nevada, or is it Ohio, or New York?
So each jurisdiction may have a different name for it.
A different name.
Okay.
But you're still going to look to where the wills and estates are located. And, for example, in Ohio, it's probate court. So I would go to the probate court, and I would look in the indexes of the testators and find out, or a general index.
And just ask for that at the front counter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can ask it for it at the counter, and they would give you the volume of general index to wills. And you would go through it, and it would have the person's name, and whether it was a will or an estate, if there was an administrator or an executor, so that gives you some clues right there. And then you request that packet, or from a will box. And they're very, very good. I mean, the people in the courts, they have a lot to do, but they're so willing to help. They are so willing to help.
And you mentioned, and I think this was the case in my own most recent probate record, was that it can be many, many pages. In fact, I remember one courthouse even asking me, do you want to pay for every single page? Because it turned out that many of the pages were actually like a duplicate of a duplicate, or it seemed like there was a lot of, or blank pages with very little on them.
You would find that, but one of the things that we tend to overlook when we're looking at these are the vouchers or the receipts. Because you might have, in the early, where a woman legally could not inherit, that her husband is signing for her part of the estate. So now you're getting a clue as to her name.
Right.
So you're having that. So it is important then to get the copies of the receipts. And it's in their handwriting. So now you've got their original signatures.
So it might be worth the investment of getting all the pages and knowing, particularly because it is a document where this is not going to be something that we can jump back online and look at again. This is our chance, right?
This is the chance. And by able to have it with the original signatures, it always means a lot more. Yeah. But if you're requesting it in writing from the court, it's wise to ask how much it would cost to have it copied, and if there's a way that numerous documents can be put on one page, like the vouchers.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and that can save you a few pennies.
Well, see, right there, you've given us some great starting points, so we feel like we can take it on. And I know we can learn more from you because you also write for some of the magazines. Tell us where we can find some of your published articles.
I have articles in Family Tree magazine. I did the one on the Ohio Guide for research, and I have had articles published in Ancestry magazine as well as the Ohio Genealogy News, which is OGN, is what we call it.
And do you have a blog, a website, anything that we can track you down online?
I have a website. It's janabroglin.com. It's really hard to come up with that one. And I have a blog which I'm going to take down because I don't keep it current. And that I do client research, and I have so much fun doing that and getting involved in it that it's like, I haven't written anything for 3 months.
You haven't found a way to put 27 hours in a day yet? Because I'm waiting to hear if there's a way to do it.
I don't know, but I've had other people that I'm trying to find out how they've done it too. Yes.
Well, Jana, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Great information, and we'll look for your articles in some of these upcoming magazines.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I'm so glad that I've had this opportunity. And, as an aside, I am with the Federation of Genealogical Societies. And we're having a conference September 2nd through 5th in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, and then the following year we'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2010, and in 11 we'll be in Springfield, Illinois.
Wow, they really do have to plan way ahead, don't they? Because it's a big job.
It is. It's a very big job. And when you look at this wonderful conference here at Jamboree, I think that a lot of us that attend and have these wonderful finds don't realize the number of hours that goes into not only the conference chair, but all these wonderful volunteers that bring it together. And I commend anybody who has volunteered either for a conference or for their own local society, because without volunteers, we wouldn't be here.
Every single one of them makes a difference.
They do.
Well said. Well, I will have links for you in the show notes and also the dates for the upcoming FGS conferences so that you can find out more information.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again,
much.
Jana.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Jana for coming on the show and talking with us a bit about probate records. A great resource, and she's got a lot of great ideas. And if you are interested in viewing this interview, I actually have it available for you. We videotaped that interview at the Jamboree, and you can find it at the Genealogy Gems TV channel over at YouTube. So just go to youtube.com/user/genealogy gems. And again, I'll have that link for you in the show notes. And while you're there, I've got lots of great genealogy videos. So if you go to the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel, look over to the left-hand side, I think it is, where my logo is, and you'll see, I think it's a yellow button. It just says subscribe. And click that, and that will send you an email whenever I produce a new video. So you'll hear about it as soon as it's published. I love bringing these genealogical gems to you that help boost your research and build a strong family tree. And it's important to me to always have free podcasts available so that everyone can participate. If you enjoy these free shows and you would like to help me cover the costs of bringing them to you each week, there's a really easy way to do that won't cost you a thing. By coming to my website at genealogygems.tv whenever you need to do some shopping online and accessing your favorite stores and websites through the links that you find on my site, you financially support the show. The price you pay is exactly the same, but Genealogy Gems receives a small percentage for referring you. It's just that simple. Amazon is one of my all-time favorite places to shop online. They have just about everything and at incredibly competitive prices. So next time you're looking for books, DVDs, software, electronics, apparel, pretty much anything at all, head to genealogygems.tv and click the Amazon ad that you find on the homepage or throughout the website. And these free podcasts will benefit by any shopping that you do. And you will get the same super low prices. Everybody wins. So if you enjoyed the Genealogy Gems podcast and the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, let your mouse do the shopping through the ads and links on the Genealogy Gems website, and together we'll keep new episodes coming for a long time to come. Well, I've got a little gem for you here from listener Eiya Loki, and it's about sorting your bookmarks. Now, I think I've shared with you on a past podcast episode how to resort on Internet Explorer on a PC the bookmarks. Because, as you're adding your bookmarks, they just kind of go in random order, but you have to go through a process of actually resorting them alphabetically so they're a little easier to scan through. Well, Eiya writes that if we haven't already noticed, Safari lacks the little convenience of allowing you to sort your bookmarks in the way that any PC browser would allow you to do it. Flat out, Safari just does not have that function, but there is a way around this. Eiya says, I looked and looked, but couldn't find anything that could really help. So I messed around by myself and came up with this method. I hope you put it on your podcast and or your blog. So let me walk you through this, and then be sure and check out the show notes because I'll have Eiya's written out instructions on how to do this. What you need to do is go into Safari, Safari being the internet browser on the Macintosh, and on the top of your screen, click on Bookmarks. In Bookmarks, there's a drop-down menu, and you click on Show All Bookmarks. In the left pane, under Collections, you click on Bookmarks menu, and then click on any bookmark in the right pane. Then go directly up to Edit at the top of your screen and click on it, and in the drop-down menu, click on Select All. Then open up the Finder, make a folder on your desktop, name it Bookmarks, double-click on the folder to open it, and then on your keyboard, press Command-J, and this will open a little window. And right about in the middle of the window, you will see the words Arrange By with a drop-down menu right next to it, and you click the drop-down menu option Name. Now you go back to Safari and drag a third of Safari's window out of screen, and then position the Finder in the empty half of the screen. Go back to the Bookmarks menu, click and drag all your bookmarks in the Finder window, and they will be automatically sorted, even the bookmarks inside the folders. Now just go back to Safari and reselect all to your bookmarks just as you did before. But this time, after you have all your bookmarks highlighted, go back up to Edit and click Delete in the drop-down window. And then finally, go back to the Finder window, do Select All just as you did before, and drag the bookmarks back into the Bookmarks menu in Safari. And you're done. Eiya says it may sound a little complicated and look a little complicated written down, but it really only takes about 30 seconds to do. And if you have a ton of bookmarks, this little hint could really be a sanity saver. So try it out, alphabetically sorting your bookmarks in Safari, and check out the show notes for episode 72. I'll have all of these instructions written out for you.
Profile America, Saturday, September 26th. One of the nation's true folk heroes, John Chapman, known as Johnny Appleseed, is thought to have been born on this date in 1774 in Massachusetts. For almost 50 years of his life, he roamed the wilderness, devotedly planting apple trees and whole orchards in a 5-state region from Pennsylvania to Indiana. He slept outdoors, walked barefoot, and carried no weapons. His clothes were made from sacks, and his hat was a tin pot, which he used for cooking. For his gentleness and courage, he was respected by both American Indians and new settlers. Some of his trees are still bearing fruit. And Americans do like apples. We each eat nearly 18 pounds of them a year. Profile America is in its 13th year as a public service of the U.S. Census Bureau.
Are you looking for a way to get even more genealogy gems that will power boost your research, inspire your creativity, and give you the motivation that you need to tackle that brick wall? Well, become a Genealogy Gems premium member. You'll get 2 extra members-only episodes every month, packed with great information that you can use right away. An instructional video series walking you through the best internet tools step by step. Our current series is called Google, a Goldmine of Genealogy Gems, and in each episode you can follow along with me as I show you online how to get the most out of Google. If you enjoy the Genealogy Gems podcast, then you're going to love being a premium member. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what your fellow podcast listeners have to say.
This is Melissa Parker in Tennessee. I'm just calling to let you know how much I'm enjoying your Genealogy Podcast Premium Edition. I especially love the handwriting analysis with Paula Sassy, and all the tips and information that you give is just so wonderful. I would encourage anyone to become a member of your Genealogy Gems Podcast Premium.
To become a premium member and start reaping the benefits right away, go to genealogygems.tv and click the Join Today button. And by entering the special coupon code SAVE20, that's SAVE20, you will get 20% off the annual membership. Genealogy Gems Premium Membership. It's where you belong. Well, that's it for episode number 72 of the Genealogy Gems podcast. Wow, it felt really good to be back at the microphone. I want to thank Jana Broglin for joining me here on the show, and all of you who have written in. Thank you so much. All your kind wishes and your great emails. I love sharing those on the show. And of course, if you want to contact me, drop me a line at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. Or, of course, don't forget, you can leave me a voicemail at 925-272-4021, and I will put you on the show. And before I head out, I just want to let you know, keep an eye out this fall because I have been busily working on some new classes, and Family Tree Magazine is going to start up their new Family Tree Magazine University website. And this is going to be online classes that you can do right from home. The one I'm working on right now is on reverse genealogy. I love this topic. I have been doing a ton of research on it and finding some new and great tips. So putting that together, and hopefully you are going to hear more about the Family Tree University very soon. So keep an eye out at their website at familytreemagazine.com, and certainly keep an ear out here, and I'll let you know when that gets rolling. I would love to see you in an upcoming class. Be fun. We get to interact. That's what I love about it. I get to not only create the class, but teach the class and interact with the students. So it's a wonderful experience. And finally, just want to make sure that you know that the Genealogy Gem Rhinestone Pin is now available at the website. I love this pin, and I got to tell you, what people are telling me is when they get the pin and they wear it, it is just a genealogy conversation starter. Everybody asks them, "Oh, what is that? What does that mean? Oh, do you do genealogy? Oh, I've been thinking about doing that." I mean, it's so wonderful when somebody actually asks you to share what you're doing with your family history and your genealogy research, and it's fun to be able to give them the answer. So the pin is a wonderful conversation starter and just shows off the fact that you are a genealogy gem, which you certainly are. That's available, again, on the website. Just go to genealogygems.tv. You will, if you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a photograph of it there, and you can buy it. There's a little easy-to-use PayPal button, and we'll ship that right out to you. It always is the next business day shipping. And the quantities are limited on it because I had to do a run. This is actually a custom designed pin. I actually did design this myself. It is a one-of-a-kind, not available anywhere else. And I ordered a certain amount from a company that shipped them out to me, and they turned out beautiful, but I do have limited quantities. So just want to make sure that you guys know about that and know where to find them. They're a lovely way to show your genealogy flair, right? Just a little bit of flair. So that's about it. I want to thank you so much for listening, friend, and I'll talk to you soon.